Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and I had some requests for something about making jewelry for dolls, so here we go. Long ago, what feels like another lifetime, I worked at a well-known craft store and I was one of the employees that helped teach jewelry making classes. Making and selling human-sized jewelry helped me earn money for my first doll too, so I've done it a bit. Making doll jewelry is pretty much the same, with a few special considerations to be made for the size and what materials work where. So first we'll look at tools, then we'll go on to common supplies and what they'd be used for. Jewelry making is one of the most beginner-friendly crafts there is because you need so few tools to get started. To work with wire, you need some pliers and some wire cutters, and that's pretty much it. This pile is more than what you need, but these are all different and have different jobs. So first up there are the wire cutters. Lots of pliers have built-in cutters, but you'll want some with a pointed tip like these that can get in close to the wire and cut it. I need to either sharpen or replace these soon because I've used these for probably 20 years and they've become dull, but they're both basic and inexpensive. Next is the round nose pliers. These are used for making loops of wire and creating your own beaded chains. The jaws of these are cylindrical and tapered, letting you make lots of different sizes of loops. Then there are chain nose pliers. These are your typical needle nose pliers type shape where they're long and pointy. There are some kinds even longer and pointier than these. These have a basic wire cutter, and the main difference between jewelry pliers this shape and household tool pliers this shape is that those made for jewelry have a smooth jaw. You want your jewelry pliers to be smooth inside so they don't dent or damage the wire you're working with. These three are the basic tools you need for wire working. Anything else is not a necessity, but nice to have. There are a few favorites I would recommend, such as the bent chain nose pliers. You can see these are mostly made for the same job, but having the angled nose makes it easier to get into tight spaces or hold things in a way that makes them more visible. Then there are these flat nose pliers, which are really ideal for holding things steady. I especially like these for jump rings, and they're what I've been using to make my doll's chainmail. Another option is crimp pliers. These have one job and one job only, which is smashing crimps into tiny little balls to hold beads on wire or string. When you close them, you can see one part smashes the crimp into a U shape, and then the rounder part can be used to smash the U shape into a ball, but I'll show you more of how these work in one of our projects today. Now let's look at some common stringing materials. Wire is probably the most common, and it comes in all different sizes and finishes. The wire gauge or thickness you want will vary by what you're doing, but you may prefer to stick to thinner wire for dolls to keep things more in scale. Thinner wire bends more easily, which means it's less strong. So you'll likely need to learn to make wrapped links to keep chains from coming apart. Wire is also often used in the form of head pins and eye pins. Eye pins are a straight piece of wire that come with a round loop at the end, which lets you connect it to a jump ring, another loop, or some other piece. These are often used for making long, straight dangling pieces that need a loop at both ends. Head pins, on the other hand, are used for something that hangs on its own. These have a shaped piece at one end that prevent a bead from sliding off. These are mostly used for charm bracelets, necklace pendants, and earrings. They also come in shapes, and using a round or ball-headed pin can really elevate your designs. I mentioned jump rings earlier, and these are your links that are used to connect things. They come in a lot of shapes, sizes, and gauges, just like wire. They're also available in several forms. Most are going to be regular cut jump rings, a circle that can be bent open to link things together. But there are also split rings like this, which sort of look like a key ring. These can be challenging to use, but a lot more secure. Using split ring pliers can make them easier to work with, but I don't typically use this kind. Earring supplies aren't available ready-made in sizes that work for dolls, but I have a video already showing how I make doll earrings, including the findings, and I'll share a link for that in the video description. Clasps for closing necklaces and bracelets come in a lot of forms, but most clasps you'll see are these types. There are ring-shaped spring clasps, lobster claw clasps, and barrel clasps, which are two pieces that screw together. It can be hard to find clasps in sizes that aren't huge on dolls, but most of the time you won't need clasps at all. It's just good to know what exists. Pre-made chains, of course, come in just about every size, shape, and metal you can imagine. Choose your chain based on what you want to do. If you just want a necklace for a pendant, a fine chain like this is good. If you want to make a charm bracelet, you'll want a chain with bigger links so you can hook things on more easily. Elastic works really well for dolls for both necklaces and bracelets. It comes in two main types. One is elastic cord, where the elastic itself is wrapped with a colored or metallic binding. The other is clear elastic cording. Wrapped elastics are easier to tie off. Clear elastic tends to be slippery and is harder to work with. If you do any kind of bead weaving, you'll use woven cords like this beading line. The popular brand for this is called Fireline, so a lot of other companies name theirs something similar. As you can see, this one is called Wildfire. Necklaces and bracelets are also great when made with this flexible woven metal cord, which is coated with plastic to make it smooth. This is called tiger tail, and it needs to be finished with crimps because it doesn't knot well. Then there's illusion cord, which is a clear filament like fishing line. It comes in lots of thicknesses. This is also good for weaving, but I like it best for illusion jewelry, which is one thing we'll make today. And of course we have regular cord. This can be cotton, polyester, jute, just string pretty much. This is used for weaving, making decorative knots, and stringing pearls. But it's often too thick for dolls, so in doll scale I often use upholstery thread as a substitute. Anytime you use cord, fire line, or illusion cord for weaving, you'll need beading needles. These tend to be much thinner than sewing needles. I like double-ended beading needles, which have a point on both ends and a split in the middle, which is where the string goes. And of course, your best friend if you're working with cord or elastic is going to be super glue, always a good thing to have in your creative supply kit. I mentioned crimps earlier, and those come in a variety of shapes and sizes, but I like just using plain round metal ones. These are 2mm and work great for dolls. And then there's the matter of beads. Generally speaking, you're just going to want to look for little ones. I try to stick to beads that are no bigger than 4mm. You'll find tons of beads in this category. Round beads can be glass, gemstones, plastic, pearls, shell, crystals, or more. You can get away with larger beads if they're focal pieces or pendants. And of course, tubes of seed beads will be your best friend. I'm a big fan of Swarovski crystals for both focal pieces and regular beading. So that's a lot of materials, but I think it covers most of the bases. With that done, let's start with a simple project, making a basic pendant necklace for a doll. I've already made a green teardrop pendant for this doll, but let's make one with a blue bead. For this, I'll first need to decide how long the necklace should hang. You can use a measuring tape, a string, or the chain itself. You can also go all the way around the doll's neck to see how it lays, but I am just going from where I want the necklace to fall on her chest to the back of her neck, because it doesn't need to be exact. I know it needs to be twice that long, so I double up to see what length that gives me, then cut the chain with wire cutters. Now I'll make her a pendant. The only dark blue teardrop beads I have are ones with a hole down the middle, so I need to put it on a head pin. I string it on a silver ball-headed pin, and then it's time to make the loop. You can absolutely bend the wire level with the top of the bead and make your loop that way, but these pins are a very thin wire and bend easily, so I'm going to make a wrapped loop for extra security. That means I need space at the top of the bead. So I hold the wire with pliers against the top of my bead and bend across the top of the pliers, which gives me a small space under where that loop will be. That way I can wrap the wire around itself. In order to create the loop, I hold the wire with one side of the round nose pliers above the wire and one below. Then I use my fingers to twist the wire around the round pliers to create the loop. If you need more room to complete your twist, it's okay to shift your pliers so you have more space on the bottom. The goal is just to make a nice circle, with the wire crossing over itself. You can see the space between the loop and the top of the bead. That's where you'll take the tail of the wire and wrap it around that vertical wire shaft to make a wrapped loop. With very thin wire, you can do this with just your fingers. With thicker wire, sometimes you'll need pliers. The shorter the wire is, the more likely you'll need pliers because you'll have less leverage to work with. But you'll just take that wire tail and wrap it around as many times as you like. I'm trying to watch my camera and not my hands while I'm making this, and it makes it tough to keep hold of the wire with my pliers, but eventually I get it wrapped with just a little tail left. The point of the wire cutters lets you get in close to snip off that remaining bit, and then you can smooth down the sharp end by holding the pendant by the loop and then using pliers to squeeze in that end. If you want this pendant to slide freely on this chain, you would just slip the end of the chain through the pendant's top. Now you could add a clasp to make it easy to get the necklace on and off, but I usually remove my dolls' heads to put on their jewelry. So I would probably just connect the two ends of the chain with a jump ring. Another option is having the chain terminate at a jump ring and stringing the bead loop on the ring as well. To open a jump ring, you'll want to take it between two pairs of pliers and twist it open. Don't pull the ends apart from each other or they'll never line up again. Just twist the ends away from each other vertically and you'll get a loop like a piece of a spiral. This ensures when you twist it back together, the ends of the ring will align perfectly so your chain won't come off. So now I just slide one end link of the chain onto the jump ring, add the pendant loop, and then add the other end of the chain. A quick twist to close this ring and this easy necklace is done. Using a thicker wire will mean you don't have to wrap the loop to keep it secure, but you may have to make design choices. For example, this butterfly-shaped crystal won't be able to rotate on the pin if I make the loop too close to the top of the bead. So leaving a little bit of space might be preferable if it gives you the sort of movement you want in your piece. Whenever you use open loops, you can connect a chain directly to your pendant and bypass the need for a jump ring completely. Now let's try making an illusion necklace. I want a necklace for one of my larger dolls that looks like pearls floating around her neck. To get this, I'll use illusion cord and some acrylic pearls. There are several ways to make it look as if the beads are floating on an illusion cord. The easiest is probably just to string your bead on the line, and then take the end of the cord and loop around the bead to go back through the hole in the same direction. The loop of cord will pull tight on the bead and hold it in place. Ta-da! Now it floats. You also have the option of putting a bead on the cord and then squeezing glue into the inside of the bead to hold it there. This can be a good option for shaped beads where the looped cord may not lay nicely. And a third option is using crimp beads to hold the bead where you want it. First, you'd add a crimp to the cord and clamp it down. Use the crimp pliers to smash the crimp into a U shape first, then use the rounded part to smash the U shape into a rounded bead. Next, add your regular bead to the line and let it fall to the crimp you've just put on. Then add another crimp bead and close it the same way to hold the bead in place. This is a little bit different of a look, but it can be used to create some interesting designs. I'll be using the simple looped method to make my illusion necklace, but I do want it to have two strands to add depth to the design. You can use multiple strands by knotting them together onto a jump ring, or you can add strength by getting loop protectors, which are a little metal shield you attach using crimps. I like these because they keep everything tidy. So I slide a crimp bead onto my two strands of illusion cord, then slide the ends of the cord through one side of the loop protector. The end of the cord then goes back down through the other side of the loop protector and through the crimp bead, and when I pull it tight, the metal will now shield the cord and make the end stronger. The crimp can be closed with crimp pliers, the extra cord cut off from the end, and then it's time to make the necklace. For this doll, I want it to fit close, so I'll make the necklace about 5 inches long and have just a few pearls on each strand. I add all of these pearls using the easy loop-on method I showed before, stringing each pearl onto the cord, and then going back through the bead in the same direction to loop the cord around the bead itself. One nice thing about this is that while the beads will stay in place, I can also loosen the cord around them to slide them along the cord to adjust the placement of the beads later. I'll keep one strand longer so they don't hang right on top of each other too. Once there are enough beads on, I add another crimp bead and another loop protector to create the other end of the necklace. To close this necklace, I add a jump ring to one end and use another jump ring to connect a lobster claw clasp to the other end. This necklace is now ready for my doll to wear. I've left some of the beads looser for now so I can slide them around and ensure they lay nicely on my doll. I can pull the cord tight later, and with time and wear they'll settle into that position and the cord won't try to rise up away from the beads. Next, I'll make a bracelet for my minifee girl. I picked green and gold beads to match her dress, and I string them onto clear elastic cord in alternating colors until it's big enough to fit around her wrist, but also big enough to stretch over her hand. The hardest part of finishing an elastic bracelet is tying the knot. You begin with a regular overhand knot using both ends of the elastic, but you want to pass the ends of the elastic through the loop twice instead of just once. This makes it a bit more secure. Then, in order to get the knot to tie very closely to the beads, you can use a sewing needle to create an anchor point and pull the knot all the way down to the strung beads. Don't be afraid to pull hard, this is really stretchy. After the knot is down against the beads, you can remove the needle and pull it all good and tight. But before you cut the tails off the elastic, use some super glue to secure the knot, or eventually this will come undone. With dolls like BJDs where you can remove their hands, you don't have to use elastic. You can also make bracelets with just non-stretchy cording. Regular sewing thread is too lightweight, but upholstery thread works well for bead stringing. Or you could use a beading string like Fireline. Here I use a very small sewing needle and some upholstery thread to string together glass pearls for a bracelet for a larger doll. This is as easy as just putting each bead on the needle and sliding it down the string. But when I get to the end, instead of just tying it, I make the bracelet stronger by going back through each and every bead. Now the string is twice as thick and the bracelet is less likely to break. Once I get to the end, a knot can be tied. To keep the tails from being visible when the thread is cut, you can take either end of the string and go through one or two beads to the side of the knot before cutting it. That way the tail will hide down inside one of the beads and not stick out. This bracelet should last a very long time. And that's pretty much it. Those are a few simple and easy options for making doll jewelry. If you'd like to see something more complicated, like making beaded chains, wire wrapping, or bead weaving, let me know in the comments below. And that's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.